Hi, my name's Katie and I have been making videos on the internet for over 10 years. In that time, I have made videos on a whole host of topics from tarot to mental health to books. In the last year or so though, I've also started to share some of my thrifting expeditions and talking about how I like to dress myself. And I have had so much fun making some of that more fashion leaning content. And I feel like so many of you have been along for the ride and really understood what I'm trying to do with those videos. However, being fat on the internet is really fucking weird. And I think especially being fat and talking about clothes on the internet is just an extra layer of weird. And I guess after almost a year of making this kind of content, I got a few things that I just feel like I need to get off my chest. Let's start with the F-bomb, the F word, flattering. It is a word that I have very intentionally tried to avoid for the most part when I'm talking about myself and my clothes. Because I think the concept of flattering is frankly bullshit. And it's just really funny and confusing to me that when I'm talking about my outfits and what is or isn't working for me, and I'm intentionally not talking about the word flattering because that is not a goal that I have. And yet, without fail, each time in the comments, there will be at least one, but usually multiple people arguing with me in the comments about essentially saying that I was wrong about my own perception of my comfortability, how I felt in an outfit, because either it wasn't flattering enough or because I didn't feel comfortable in the supposedly flattering one. For example, this outfit, I didn't like it because I thought it was kind of weird that my shoes and the pants kind of were the same color. It's just not really what I like. I like a lot of contrast in my outfits, right? It's something that visually I prefer. And yet I had multiple people telling me that actually this looked good because the pants and the shoes are the same color, which makes my legs look longer, which makes me look slimmer. And so therefore, that's what I should technically be aiming for. I've had it with lots of other outfits too. And the funny thing is that people who talk about this and they use the word flattering use it as if it is objective. And that's my problem, right? Is because this word is not objective. If anything, it's usually just a code for, especially when it's used towards fat people, it's just a code for it makes you look skinnier than you are. And by extension, there's the assumption that that is a good thing and that is what we should be aiming for. But flattering is not objective, my friends. The concept of what is or isn't flattering changes over time. What we should be highlighting or hiding in our bodies changes over time. And I don't just mean the centuries, but literally decades and through trend cycles. And so the idea that something is objectively flattering and therefore objectively preferable is just nonsense. So essentially these kind of comments, I see them as a whole lot of projection. The projection of the commenter of their own kind of biases, internalized fat phobia, whatever it is, the beauty standards of the society that they live in, that these people have internalized, that they're spewing onto me and assuming that I am trying to fit, despite me never declaring whatsoever that I am making any attempt to do so. I have never once said that that's a priority for me. I have never once said that that's something I'm aiming to achieve. In fact, multiple times I have said the entire opposite. I've spoken several times about the fact that wearing oversized clothes, especially that are bright and colorful, feels like a subversive act as a fat person to me. In a world that tells me that I should be always trying and striving to be smaller than I am, wearing bold colors in clothes that are way too big for me feels incredibly subversive. I feel totally punk rock and roll when I do that. And I don't know about you, but I think somebody who is feeling themselves, feels empowered, feels like they're truly expressing themselves, that is way hotter and more interesting to me than someone who is just desperately trying to fit some narrow beauty standards. A lot of other concepts kind of come up under this same umbrella, whether people use the word flattering or not. I think some of the obvious would definitely be the suggestions that things that make me look slimmer or taller are preferable. And that's not to say that sometimes I don't like looking taller. I love wearing a chunky shoe, but I don't like the outfit just because it makes me look slimmer or taller. That is so boring to me. If that is your only goal when you're getting dressed, why? Similar things have been said about monochromatic outfits, that they essentially help my body fit a little bit more in line with the beauty standards. Not that a monochromatic outfit is a striking choice, that it's interesting, that it's compelling, simply that it makes me look slimmer. And so therefore it is a good outfit. And I guess the thing that gets me about these comments is that they're very often framed as if they are objective, like I said, as if the concept of what is or is not flattering is objective, but also as if the concept of trying to wear clothes and outfits that are flattering, that fit within the beauty standards, is the objective goal, which I want to purport is simply false. My goal is not to create some illusion with my clothing that my body is smaller or taller or whatever is the current trend at that time. My goal is not to visually or literally change my body or who I am. I would say if I had to highlight my priorities when I'm getting dressed, it is to express myself and to be comfortable. Imagine that. Imagine that. I've also had a huge amount of comments on my breasts, which is just weird. And like, I've had comments from like weird, creepy men about my boobs over time, but that's not what I'm talking about here. Instead, I'm talking about largely who appear to be women, essentially policing my body. What are you doing? Like, seriously, what are you doing? I've had a lot of people talk about like the size of my breasts, which yes, I have always had big boobs. Whatever weight I have ever been, I've always been busty. And so I've had a lot of comments about like the size of them and asking if I've thought about getting reductions and that sort of thing, which like, excuse me, stay in your lane. That's all I have to say to that. I've also had several comments about the bras that I wear and about where my boobs are sitting, which again, stay in your fucking lane. But I suppose if you want to talk about it, let's talk about it. A couple of years ago, I severely injured my hand in a workplace accident, which has resulted in some very long-term pain. And especially in the immediate aftermath of this injury, I was really, really struggling to put on bras by myself, like proper, like do-up bras at the back and all of that shit, underwire, push-up. Anyway, at some point, I decided I was just going to stop forcing myself to do this. I was going to stop making my hand hurt so much that I would have to sit down and like cry a little bit for half an hour and have some painkillers. I was going to stop forcing myself into that because it was extremely painful for me to do. And I just got some like stretchy crop tops and like that was easy enough for me to put on, and I started wearing them. And within like literally less than a week, I want to say like 3 or 4 days, it occurred to me that I was having so much less shoulder and back pain. I'm hypermobile, and so I have just like experienced pain my entire life to some extent, to the point where it's been debilitating at times. And I just noticed a massive reduction in the pain in that area. And I decided then and there that I was never going back. I was absolutely never going back. Like, it didn't even occur to me that it was my bras that were causing a lot of the pain. And yes, I've been like properly fitted. I go to specialist bra shops and I spend $150 on a fucking bra. And I still experience that pain, in large part because of my hypermobility and the size of my breasts. Could I spend months and thousands of dollars on trying to find the perfect bra that would still lift me up without causing that pain? Maybe. Could I spend thousands of dollars on getting a breast reduction? Maybe. Or could I just wear some stretchy crop tops and remove so much of that pain? Like, absolutely, that's what I'm picking. And yeah, my breasts sit a little lower than they would if I were wearing a push-up bra. My silhouette changed a little bit when I made that decision. And it did take me a month or so to kind of get used to that new silhouette. But that was like a year ago. I am more than comfortable with how my body looks in the bras that I've been wearing, or the crop tops that I've been wearing, I should say. And physically, I am so much more comfortable. I had a comment that literally said something about the fact that I'm too young for my breasts to sit that low. I'm sorry, but tits are not supposed to sit under your chin. That's ridiculous. And honestly, I love the fact that I made that change, not only for my physical comfort levels, but also because I think it really did help break any like residual bullshit that was left in the back of my head that I had internalized around beauty standards, and this idea that we have to, especially as women, but all genders, that we should be making ourselves physically uncomfortable so that we can better suit some enforced beauty standards, so that when other people look at us, like what? They can be more comfortable? Like, what are we doing? Honestly and truly, releasing yourself from the confines of beauty standards is liberating. And I can only hope that the people who have commented shit like this can find their way there at some point. Because when you stop forcing yourself to be uncomfortable so that you can look a certain way, honestly, your life changes. It truly does. And like, I could keep telling you about all of the weird comments that I've received. I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be highlighting them, and I don't want this to be some pity party, because truly, like, so far these comments haven't really like gotten in deep with me. They feel icky. I don't like receiving those sort of comments, but like, they haven't really like burrowed their way into the back of my brain. You know what I mean? Because I'm at a really good place with my clothes and with my body. I think about my body a whole lot less than these people do. And to me, it just feels like, yes, these people are attempting to police my body, but I think it's definitely a projection. I think these are the kind of people that are very heavily policing themselves. And that makes me really sad. That does make me genuinely sad. One of the reasons that I don't really like to talk about like my weight or, you know, whatever the fuck. One, because I just don't think about it all that much. I truly don't. I don't know that I would go so far as to say that like I love the way my body looks, but I also don't hate it. I feel very neutrally about it, and I truly think that should be the goal for most people. I don't talk about this sort of stuff when I'm trying on clothes. I'm not saying, oh, I don't like how this makes my tummy look, or I try not to focus on that stuff because I suppose I want to model how it can look just being kind of neutral when you're putting on outfits. And like, yeah, there's definitely some outfits that I don't like on me or that I don't feel comfortable in, and that's okay, right? I'm not saying that I am some like pinnacle of like body positivity over here, but I do truly think that there are ways to talk about fashion and clothing, even on plus size bodies, and that we don't have to focus on beauty standards. And that's one of my goals with my videos, to make that kind of just like a non-issue. And I suppose it's because I also genuinely believe that so much of the language around beauty standards, I think it's designed to make it sound like these beauty standards are objective, in the same way that people like to think that flattering is an objective kind of perspective. Like some of the words that I hear people use, whether in my comments or just generally on the internet, to kind of describe things that are aesthetic or preferable, are words like balanced, symmetrical, classic, timeless, sleek, proportional. All of these things, I'm not saying that you can never use these words or that there's no way to use these words in like a non-objectifying kind of way. But I think a lot of the time, similarly with flattering, they're kind of code for a particular kind of beauty standard. And ultimately, at least in my comments, a lot of the time when people have used these kinds of words, it ultimately feels kind of objectifying in a weird way. When you're talking about whether an outfit is flattering or not on me, or whether you're talking about like my proportions and whether it makes me look slimmer or taller, you're not engaging with me as a person. You're not engaging with my creative expression. You're not engaging with me in like even what I'm trying to convey and what I'm talking about with the outfit. You're fixated on one thing, and that is how my body looks in the clothes that I'm wearing. And I think ultimately that ties into a presumption about the worth that my body does or doesn't have in a public space. I love my clothes and I love how I look in my clothes, and I really love sharing all of that with you because, like I said, so many of you truly get what I'm trying to do here. I don't think I could ever profess to like truly deeply love my body, but I don't hate it either. And sometimes I think that people really resent that about me. People really think that I should hate my body. And I feel like especially when fat and or disabled people don't hate their body, sometimes it triggers something in people. I am not trying to visually or literally shrink myself to make myself slimmer or sleeker or meeker or more palatable. Wearing oversized and colorful clothing genuinely fills me with so much joy. It feels subversive, like I said. It feels playful. And yeah, I want my outfits to look good and to feel good, but I also just want to feel comfortable for the lifestyle that I have. I want to be able to go out on a spontaneous birding adventure. I want to play with my dog. I want to be able to sit and read on the couch for an hour or two. I think as an autistic person, I have embraced the fact that I am somebody who does not feel comfortable in fussy layers. I don't want clothes to cling to me. I generally don't like wearing belts and stuff too often. I've learned that despite it being the trendiest thing on the planet for the last 5 or 6 years, that lots of accessories is just not my thing. Like from a sensory perspective, but also from an aesthetic one. Sometimes it feels like a lot of people online have really like internalized a lot of this like body typing, color analysis, Susanna and Trini advice, or the rules that are kind of prescribed from all of this advice. That if you have a certain body type or you have certain coloring, that there are some things that you should be wearing and some things that you shouldn't be wearing. Again, talking about this sort of stuff as if it is objective, as if it is factual. There's this pseudoscience kind of nonsense that I think surrounds a lot of this fashion talk. And I understand where the attraction to these systems comes from, right? Like I think a lot of us just feel really overwhelmed. We don't really know what we like. We don't really know what we feel comfortable in or how we look our best. And so it can be really nice to think that if we just figure out this system, if we just understand the facts about our body, then we will automatically know the correct way to dress. And I'm not saying that I have never gained any insight that has been helpful to me from these systems. Like the color analysis stuff, like I have no interest of actually getting an analysis done. But I think like the realization between me being cool toned and like the fact that I do tend to prefer cooler tones on me, that was helpful. That's kind of about as far as it goes, and I am not prescriptive about it by any sense, but like, you know, a little bit of this can be helpful. I think it's when people start to really think of this stuff as if it's science, and also then start not only taking the suggestions as if they are rules, but then projecting it onto other people, is just absolutely nonsense. It is nonsense. And not only is it nonsense, but it's harmful. So like, stop. Please, truly, just stop it. For what it's worth, I genuinely think that style, personal style, whatever that is, if you are interested in it at all, should be a combination of a whole host of things. It shouldn't just be some like formula that is prescribed to you based on like, I don't know, like a set of criteria about your body. For my part, personal style, if we're going to engage with that, should sit somewhere at the intersection of like your interests and your hobbies with your personality. And it should also be comfortable and practical for you, for your body, for your needs, and for your lifestyle. Those should be the primary concerns, not whether something is flattering. If you think style is simply whatever makes you look skinniest or tallest, like, I don't know what to tell you, baby girl. That's not style. That's forcing yourself into a beauty standard. And that's just sad. Now, obviously, all of this is not to say that your style priorities should be the same as mine. But I suppose if your primary goal when you're getting dressed in the morning is to look as skinny and snatched as you possibly can, I would maybe just invite you to consider why. Like, why are you doing that and who are you doing it for? Are you truly your most comfortable? Are you truly expressing yourself? And look, if the answers are yes to those questions, have at it. You do you. But do not, under any circumstances, come onto the internet and come into my comments and tell me that is also how I should be dressing. That those beauty standards are something that I should be prioritizing. Because that's just not cute behavior and I don't want it here. Up until now, I have tried to be very generous with my reading of these kind of comments, and I've often tried to engage in a bit of a dialogue with some of the nicer ones, because I know this beauty standard stuff is pervasive as hell. And I get when you have been told your whole life that these are the standards that you need to fit to in order to be valued, to be worthy. It's a really easy, logical step to then just start prescribing that to other people too. But I'm here to tell you that I don't want that in my comments, and I don't think that that's acceptable. And I also think you're better than that. Hi folks, Editing Katie here. I just wanted to pop in and make a few clarifications for this video before we end. Because the first part of this video that you've just seen, I filmed weeks ago and has been sitting on my hard drive waiting for me to finally get the courage to actually put it on the internet. And in the meantime, I've had a few thoughts, and I just thought that this was the kind of video that it was worth maybe being at risk of over-explaining myself rather than under-explaining myself. Firstly, I just wanted to make it so abundantly clear, if it's not already, that this video is not me kind of telling you that you can't ever talk to me about my outfits and what you think of them. I really hope that's clear. I feel like most of you will get that, but just in case that went over your head, I wanted to make it so clear. I wanted to spell it out. I love hearing from you about how you're thinking and feeling about the outfits that I share with you. I especially love when you're able to kind of talk about how that might relate to or has like helped you think about your own wardrobe and your own outfits in new ways. I'm also aware that like there's definitely a huge spectrum, and this is true for all kinds of comments. There's such a big spectrum of like how problematic or offensive or like icky I find comments about my body. The comment that I shared earlier in this video about someone saying that my breasts shouldn't sit as low as they do for my age, despite the fact that, you know, wearing a push-up bra, like my boobs still just sit where they sit. I still can't get over how weird that comment was. Anyway, that would be somewhere like in the middle of how weird the comments get, you know? Like it's very clearly not a kind comment, but it's not like as grotesque and horrible as they can get. And those are the kind of comments that like I don't even think I could show you, let alone want to show you. But right down the other end of the spectrum are comments that do kind of refer to something about my body that aren't icky. I think in particular, I'm thinking of recently I posted a video doing a closet clear out, and in that I spoke about one dress in particular that I love, and I know so many of you do too, that just doesn't fit me quite right around the breasts, and I end up having to like pull the dress forward for the waistband to sit under my breasts. Anyway, a couple of you commented like suggesting maybe trying a different bra with it, and those of you that, at least until this point that I've seen, that made that comment did so really respectfully, thoughtfully. It was in reference to a specific problem I identified. Do you know what I mean? Like, even though I don't want to go out and buy a different bra for one dress, and I don't want to be wearing uncomfortable bras just so that I can wear that dress. So it's not a solution I am going to use, I still didn't have a problem with those comments. Whereas like a couple of levels up from there, but still a long way from just being like icky and offensive, are the comments that are more along the lines of like the well-meaning but still kind of icky, I think, comments. I've had a lot of these, and I don't want to put them up here because I don't want to blast these people, because I know most of them, at least I don't think, they're trying to be intentionally harmful. They're the kind of comments that will talk about my outfits as if they're just like all wrong and that I should be trying like to wear clothes that are just like completely not me and not my style, because those are the clothes that would suit me more. These are where words like sleek and fitted and flattering, like those are the comments that usually use those kinds of words, where essentially because they have internalized so much of the like body typing and flattering, like analysis stuff, they think that they know how I should be dressing. And from their perspective, I'm sure that they're just like informing me or like helping me learn. Whereas from my perspective, I know a lot of those rules. I've just chosen not to abide by them because I don't feel my best doing that. And that's just boring. And so it's people who have made those comments that I'm really hoping a video like this will kind of connect with. And I'm hoping, at least for some of them, especially the well-intentioned ones, this video will help them rethink a little bit, like how they're thinking about my outfits and what's going on for them internally when they're typing out those comments. Why they're feeling this need to kind of tell me that I need to realign my own personal style so that it can better fit beauty standards. As for the comments that are like up the end of the spectrum of just being like hateful and grotesque and like just disgusting, I'm well aware that a video like this is not going to make those kind of people change their mind. And at this point, I'm not even concerned with those people. Like, to me, they're a lost cause. I'm not interested in what they have to say. And partly because it's easy to identify comments like that, you know, and which makes it easy to like check out mentally and to just block and delete. Whereas it's these comments that sit in this murky, well-intentioned, but still icky, potentially harmful kind of realm that are kind of harder to navigate as a content creator. I know there's a lot of nuance to this that I am not covering, and I know everybody's own boundaries and assessment of like what is and isn't okay will be different. But this is my YouTube channel, so I'm trying to let you know what I think isn't okay, while hopefully giving you some food for thought along the way. And I suppose if I can be blunt, I'm not interested in doing the emotional labor of like having these conversations with these kinds of people and these kind of comments anymore. As I mentioned, I have tried to be relatively generous in my interpretation of them, and I have tried to engage some of these people in a bit of conversation, but I'm hoping this video can do a whole lot of the legwork for the future, because I can't keep trying my best to be like compassionate and thoughtful and whatever, like kind of navigating all of that in a comment section over and over again with different people, but essentially having the same conversation from my end, which involves kind of like having to overthink my own tone and how I'm approaching. Like I don't want to do it anymore. And don't you worry, with like the icky end of that spectrum, I do just block and delete. Like you won't find those comments on my channel anymore because they're not there. And that is absolutely a practice I will be continuing. I'm not making any apologies for that whatsoever. But I guess going forward, I might need to be a little bit more liberal with those block and delete sort of situations. Again, I understand that a lot of this is not malicious, it's not hateful, but it's still harmful. Whether it's for me directly having to read this over and over again, like all of this projection, but also for other people in the comments. Like all of this beauty standard, flattering, body type stuff, like it's just not something I'm interested in putting out to the world. It's not something I'm trying to reinforce with my content. And part of my content kinda is the comments that people read while they're watching the video. And I just don't want that nonsense there anymore. Again, like I said, I'm definitely over explaining myself at this point, but I just wanted to make sure, and I really hope I have achieved that by this point. I really wanted to make sure that you got what I'm trying to say here. And I feel like the vast majority of you will understand. Anyway, I'm going to hop down off my soapbox. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you got some value out of this video. A big thank you as always to my lovely patrons over on Patreon, and especially big thank you to Livia and Lynette Brown. And I will talk to you next week, hopefully in a whole lot more fun, chill, less ranty kind of video. Until then, so much love. Bye.